to let a few doors walk, but if that freezer runs low, I gotta stock it. These scrub bucks got no mask, darn sure no drop times, but this chili has deer burger in it tonight.
Where did this podcast go? Straight to hell. Yeah, speaking of hell, check out East Coast Bow Hunting Podcast.
We keep it real on East Coast.
First of all, I'm addicted to the show.
I like that. That's cool.
Full bore hunt, you live it, you breathe it.
It's a whole different world.
Just East Coast has a little bit more of an edge and a grind.
It's a fantastic thing.
You guys are fucking awesome.
Well, number one is you guys like beer.
I want to feel like I'm hanging with the boys.
You're the guys that showed up.
But I actually saw Jesus.
The point where it is now where it's insane.
Let's get the fuck out of here.
Just want to get the realest people possible in the industry.
You just got to piss people off. You're not doing it right.
Nothing forced. It's all fucking natural.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Step into Slayer headquarters with us as we slip into the woods for another episode. Today, we're joined by Dana Pace, Illinois Shedhunter. We're going to try to refrain from cussing this episode. You know what? Fuck that shit. We're going to be ourselves and keep it 100. I'm your boy D-Rock, here with
Trev,
Ryan,
Drew.
We are here in Moodus, Connecticut, hiding in the mountains of God's heaven. Today's episode is brought to you by Shebeen Brewing. Shebeen, the hunter's beer, at www.shebeenbrewing.com. 100 Demons, East Coast hardcore music known worldwide, at www.100demons.com. Trev's Euros for all your Euromount needs on Facebook. Outright Hunting with the Morph Pro, the last bow hanger you will ever buy, at www.outrighthunt.com. Ethics Archery, it's like steroids for your arrows, at www.ethicsarchery.com. Use promo code EastCoast10 for 10% off your final bill. Nor'easter Game Calls. Look out for the ECB Blood Series Turkey Pot Call coming soon at www.nor'eastergamecalls.com. Wild Edge Inc., the leader in mobile hunting, at www.wildedgeinc.com. This show is presented by Working Class Bowhunter, not just a podcast, but the brand in the hunting industry. East Coast Bow Hunting Podcast is here as always for new and old hunters by sharing our experiences in the woods through playing and slaying. What's up?
What's up, D-Rock?
what's up?
What's going on? Yo, Drew, what happened to Boneyard?
Yeah, I totally fucked that up.
No, that's all good, man. You got to stop being Drew for a little bit.
I said it, and I was like, oh, shit.
You're Boneyard when you're here.
That's right.
Yeah, you get to let loose and kind of let the tie out and keep your hoodie on.
Be a hunter.
Yeah. So let's dive right into it, man. Shed hunting magic. Who's got something to say? Everyone's been in the woods, slaying it.
These guys are living in the woods.
We've been in the woods,
trying.
man.
I want their job.
We found the right sign. You know, we found rubs, scrapes, bedding arrows. Hell, we found live deer, but we can't seem to find them damn sheds. But we did, go back to some of our public land that we do hunt and found some new areas, some nice funnels. I know I found a sweet funnel between a couple swamps, just a real nice pinch point where they got no choice but to go through. So definitely finding some good stuff, just not the bone we're after. But
sort of like your ladies.
That's
they
it,
hold them hostage. They got no place to
There's
go.
nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So we've been finding the good stuff, just not that bone, but it's all education. It's all stuff to keep in the back of our mind come fall time.
That's what it's about, though. It's, most of the time you're shed hunting. It's just a reason to get in the woods to prep for next season.
Hell yeah. You know what? I did find something cool. It's probably about even cooler than a shed. I'm always out there looking for cool stuff, and I found a little salvage pile out in the woods, and it was actually an old vehicle. You find that kind of shit out in the woods all the time. Glass bottles, and I went right over and I started digging through it. We'll have to post a picture of it. It's an old metal, toy truck.
You need to get more data, though.
What's that?
You need to get more data, right?
More yeah. So tonight at midnight. Old metal truck, looks like an old tow truck, real cool.
A toy truck, right?
Yeah, an old toy truck from, I don't even know what year it's from, but it's real cool. I found it in the pile of another truck.
You didn't bring it home for Bo?
I brought it home from my girl. Likes that kind of shit.
Oh, there you go. All right, good.
An old motor oil can too, which is cool. She digs old bottles and stuff. So I found a nice Coca-Cola bottle a few weeks back when we were out shed hunting and stuff. So I'm always looking at cool shit in the woods.
The motor oil can was pretty badass.
It was in good shape too.
Yeah,
so definitely found some cool stuff. Not a shed antler, but still some cool things to bring home from the woods.
Bring that to out Midwest, and you could go to American Pickers, see what they give you for it.
Yeah, right.
Frank will be all over that. They're right around the corner from there, right?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what about you? I know your boy Trev, the Griffin brothers scored big.
Oh yeah,
right?
they got into
Shout out
something.
to them.
John Griffin, who's the younger brother. He's I was on the FaceTime with them today, and they were showing me off all the sheds and stuff. Those guys definitely killing it. He did a rough score on the shed. He got 70 inches, 70 and 4/8 or something. So it's definitely a big shed. They got some people came out from social media and just kind of showed them that they have some other videos and stuff of that deer. So it's alive. So it's a cool deer. I was me personally with shed hunting and stuff. I got on some old rub lines and stuff like that, and definitely seeing where the rut activity was in the previous season. So I'm really excited to get in that woods and actually hunt it. But
I saw the live video that you put out. I'm like, who the fuck? Oh, it's Trev.
Yeah.
Had the modern assassin bandana going.
Yeah, because it was fucking cold as shit out, and I couldn't wear a sweatshirt because I got my hands tattooed, so it sucked. So I just kind of grinned and bared it and put the modern assassin neck sleeve on my head and just went to town.
Yeah, that mask looks awesome as a bandana.
Because it was nice. It was nice out originally, and then we got these snow squalls and everything else, so it sucked. But it is what it is.
I was cold looking at you, Trev.
I was fucking freezing by the time I got back.
That wind was nuts.
What about you, Boneyard? Didn't one of your boys find a deadhead or something like that out there?
Yeah, Jacob out in Missouri found a sweet deadhead, and he posted a picture of it on our Instagram. And my buddy Travis found a couple of really nice sheds in Mass.
Can you touch a little bit on what he posted as far as
he did a good
hunting?
video. I put it on my Instagram. He sent it to me. He's in Massachusetts. He's about 45 minutes from the Cape. And he just did a short video on, a lot of guys wonder why it's so hard to find sheds. Like, we have deer here, decent deer. We have big deer. It's not the Midwest, but, deer still drop their antlers here. So he did a post on how it is hard to find sheds in New England. The reason why is because most of those big deer are living in the nasty, nasty, nasty shit where if you find a shed, you got to step on it. Or the help of a dog, or, there's not many fields around here. There's not much eggs. They're not dropping them in fields. So, you really got to bust your balls to find a shed.
Yeah, getting those old olive groves or the old, the briars and the dude. I'm literally on my hands and knees in some spots, getting in there and crawling into these crazy spots, and that's why I find most of mine too. Is just in that thick of the thick, and it sucks. It's not a good time. I'm 260 pounds crawling around in that shit. It's not a good time by any means.
Don't do that in front of Pornstar Ryan.
Yeah,
you might get ideas.
I make sure he's on the other side.
Yeah, we go separate ways. We go separate ways.
I'm curious on your little private parcel, Trev. With all the mulberries.
It was kind of funny as I came home for lunch and I was thinking, I'm like, I got to go in there. What if I found his broken off fucking antlers that D-Rock shot?
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about that today.
But, yeah, that's
you going to find them little things?
That boy had a big body, so
yeah, he was a big body deer for sure.
It's cool.
In podcast land, we have returned from Iowa Deer Classic, and we probably munched on him already and spread it around. Because
I probably have a ton more sheds.
Yeah, and by now in podcast land, the boys got woke with some real lobster rolls, East Coast lobster rolls. So it's gonna be a good time. So let's cut into it. Let's get Dana Pace on the phone.
You want to do deer news?
Oh, yeah. Deer news. I almost skipped.
What about you, D-Rock? What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? Let's hear it from
Me?
you first.
You're just like me. We just work. Everyone else has fun.
No, I've been grinding, striking deals, and turning wheels, basically. I mean, I've been really enjoying the whole aspect of the podcast and really diving in head first with arms back, as Garrett and Boneyard said. So on the weekends, I get to relax because by the time I'm done grinding, it's already dark out, so ain't no sense of going in the woods in the dark. And just really trying to get out into the woods. I feel like I've been neglecting it, but that's what it takes sometimes on the grind.
I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to be for, and like I said, in podcast land, we already came back, so I'm looking forward to it. What do you got, Ryan?
Hell
Deer
yeah!
news.
So a little lack of an introduction here, D-Rock. I'm a little disappointed today.
Why you want the music?
No, it's all good. What up, fellow Slayers, and welcome back yet again. Another weekly Whitetail News brought to you by RyanThePornstar. It's been a little while since you guys have heard from me. We've been dumping out episodes from all the shows, but I'm back with some news. So for those of you veteran Slayers who've been living under a rock, or just the new hunters that are not informed yet, being newer to the game and all. But there has been some news of a breakthrough study regarding chronic wasting disease, a.k.a. CWD, or the zombie deer disease, as the media hype has portrayed it recently. It was all over the news. So those of you guys that haven't heard about it yet, I'm not even sure what that was.
Breaking news.
So this again comes from our fellow East Coast Slayer and listener, Mike Salter, sending his news to me. News, D-Rock. In a press release from February 2nd, yeah, I know, old news, right? We've been off a little bit here. But according to Pennsylvania ecologist John Evelyn, who is a professional forester, wildlife biologist, and ecologist, he says that until now, CWD in the cure has been looked at from the wrong angles. Dr. Frank Bastian from Louisiana State University College of Agriculture, he has found a breakthrough of how CWD is actually caused. Decades of research was known as CWD being a prion-caused disease, but Dr. Bastian has discovered otherwise. According to Dr. Bastian's new discovery, CWD is actually caused by a previously unknown bacteria, which is called spiroplasma. And the previously known prions are actually a byproduct of this bacterial infection. So huge breakthrough news on that. With that breakthrough discovery of CWD being caused by a bacterial infection now, it makes it possible for a vaccine to be developed and actually used and to help cure the CWD.
So use that Monostat 7.
That's it. Use it. And according to Dr. Bastian, within 2 years, he plans to have an injectable vaccine. Now, of course, they're going to start with farm-raised deer. Of course, we can't go out there into the wild and just shooting up deer with vaccines, but he's going to start with the farm-raised deer and the elk. But within 2 years...
Boneyard's got that blowgun.
He's always talking about it. Might as well use it, right? So within the next 2 years, Dr. Bastian thinks he's going to have a curable, injectable vaccine for CWD. Now, regardless of this information, we all know there is still so much unknown about CWD, but there's hope and there's light at the end of that tunnel. So let's switch gears for a moment here and talk about conservation and give everyone a little outlook on how much money hunters and fishermen, outdoorsmen pay towards conservation through license, stamps, permits, and so on. All the stuff that we're spending money on every year so we can actually be out in that field. So I recently stumbled on the 2018 Connecticut Revenue Report from hunters purchasing these items. It was recently posted on one of the Facebook pages here in Connecticut, and I thought it was pretty cool seeing these numbers. So just to give everyone an outlook on such a small state here in Connecticut and what we actually give. In 2018, I want to touch on the archery, deer, and small game permits alone were over $455,000 that us hunters spent on just the archery and small game permits alone.
Damn.
That's a good amount of money.
For how many hunters was that? Do you know?
I think there was 11,000 permits bought. So they're $41 a piece for in-state, and I mean that's not even including the out-of-state permits, the actual hunting firearms license, anything. That's just strictly archery licenses. So
that's awesome.
It's some pretty big numbers.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next point. Anti-hunters or just non-hunters, we all care about wildlife conservation. So I encourage everyone, do your part like us hunters and give back to conservation. Go to your local post office, buy a migratory duck stamp. All that goes to great causes. Donate to your local wildlife groups. Hell, even buy up some deer permits so us hunters can't get out there if you're capable of doing that.
That's good advice. And you know, as far as that deer stamp, you could actually donate a $200 print and get a nice print to hang on your wall of the duck stamp.
Hell yeah.
Or waterfowl stamp. So,
hell yeah.
I mean, there's different ways you can contribute as a non-hunter or anti-hunter. And like Ryan said, not to reiterate, but you could take away tags from us hunters by buying up the tags. Get in it.
At least that way we get something going back towards wildlife conservation. So let's all do our part. Let's all ensure wildlife conservation for generations to come. And that is your weekly Whitetail News brought to you by RyanThePornstar. And as always, send your news.
I love it. Good job, man. That was good deer news, good report. Let's get Dana Pace on the phone. I can't wait, man.
Hell yeah.
Gunshot!
right, cool. We got Dana Pace, Illinois Shedhunter on the phone. What's going on, Dana?
Not much, just living the dream here in Illinois during shed season.
Hell yeah. So welcome to the show. Obviously, you know who I am, and you're here joined with Trev.
Hey, Dana, how are you?
How's it going, Trev?
We got Ryan on the other end.
Dana, how we doing tonight?
Ryan, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
And we'll finish off with Boneyard to my right.
What's up, buddy? I'm living the dream, too.
With a name like that, I'd say so.
Right up Dana's alley, that's for sure.
Yep. Heck yeah.
Hey, Dana, I know we talked about this for a little bit, but why don't you explain yourself a little bit on your intro music? Because we're definitely hardcore out here in the East Coast, and we had no idea you get down with the hardcore.
Well, that's the only kind of music to listen to, isn't it? I mean,
good answer.
I mean, nothing else gets you going like that. Like I said, the intro music. My brother's a huge fan, and he turned me on to it a couple years ago, and it's been in the blood ever since.
Hell yeah. It's always in the blood, that's for sure. And those
always in the blood.
Yeah, you're going to fit in just like a glove. So let's cut right into it. Dana Pace, tell us who you are, where you're from, and where we can find you.
All right. I am from West Central Illinois, born and raised in West Central Illinois and in eastern Iowa, but on Facebook, you can find me under Dana Pace. And on Instagram, you can find me under Bone Hunter, which obviously is linked to shed hunting, if you couldn't tell. But, yeah, that's what I live to do. I live to deer hunt and live to shed hunt every year. Teach my kids the way of the life.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool. And you do a little something else on the side, too, that's pretty impressive, man. And I definitely need to dip into one of those because I'm hooked.
Yeah, I'm an antler carver. Been carving for, forever? Since 99 anyways. But, I've carved a little bit of everything, but my forte is morel mushrooms and mini shed antlers. And I tell you what, it went from a hobby to being almost a part-time job anymore, but I get to mess with antlers every day of my life. So
that's really cool, man. Since we're on the subject, I mean, let's start from the beginning there. You've been carving since 99, yeah?
Yep. So you want to know how I started or why I started?
Yeah, let's start from the beginning.
All right. I was in high school at the time, and we used to go to a state morel mushroom hunting contest every year. Go down, we get bussed into a remote location, and then whoever finds the most mushrooms wins. Well, we were leaving, and on the last one that we did, we were leaving, heading out the door, and I walked by a guy that was selling some walking sticks that had mushrooms carved at the end, and they looked like giant wieners. And I thought to myself, God, I can make it veinier than that. So I went home and started whittling away on some wood, and I haven't slowed down since.
So carving veins.
You got porn star Ryan all riled up over here.
Carving veins in some wood.
Yep.
That's funny.
They're deep.
So the story goes that you started with mulberry tree, yeah?
Yeah, I had some mulberry growing out in the backyard, and it's really junk wood, but I didn't know that at the time, and it was hard to work with, but it still looked a lot better than that piece that I seen at the hunting contest, the mushroom hunting contest. So
Oh man,
That's awesome.
It's kind of hard to talk about it. It's making me slur my words and everything.
On that note,
Bean. Hey, by the way, what are you sipping on right now?
I've got some Jack and Coke right now.
Oh hell yeah, right up our alley.
Yeah, we
you
love
sure
it.
you're not from the East Coast,
Yeah.
Dana?
You fit right in up here.
Jack and Cokes and hardcore music. Welcome to the East Coast.
Yep.
The only thing
And
he's
bow
got,
hunting. Don't forget bow hunting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
both.
oh yeah,
he's got big antlers to find though.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
yeah.
struggle in that department.
yeah. We'll touch on that
Yeah.
for sure. We'll touch on that for sure. So, go ahead.
I gotta
Coach.
ask about the mushrooms. Like, that's it. Morel mushrooms, like here, it's a really hard thing to find. So, is there like other mushrooms that you guys hunt for? Also, I know it's a little bit off topic, but
So
that's a
we've
good
got some other types that we've got oyster mushrooms, and then we've got hen of the woods and chicken of the woods mushrooms. But our morel mushrooms grow pretty thick here in the Midwest, and it's not anything to go out and pick, 5 or 6 pounds a day. So
wow,
wow.
and they are delicious.
I'm super, super jealous because the thing that I do a ton of foraging here, and it's more or less chicken of the woods, hen of the woods, and we do a lot of ramps. That's like, and fiddleheads. That's like our big,
Also
big
lobster
thing.
too.
Yeah, well, that's a chicken of the woods.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, so that we do a ton of it, and I do a ton of it, and sell them to a lot of restaurants and stuff. But we don't get to have morels. If
Yeah.
you get one,
Far
you
and
get
few,
like
yeah.
you probably get like maybe 2 or 3 a season when you're picking up here for mushrooms. Very rarely do you get a
that
lot.
would drive me nuts. That would drive me nuts.
It does drive me nuts.
But if you got other mushrooms to supplement from here and there, I'd be happy though.
You get
As long
used
as
to
I'm
eating.
eating something from the wild.
Yeah, you get used to eating chicken and hen, so it's not that
Yep.
bad. It's not like they're bad mushrooms to eat.
No, but if you don't cook it right, it could be like cardboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Cool, man. So, just so you know, Dana, we touched before. It's like something I yell at my dad all the time. It's like I was born. I don't know if you knew this, but I was born in West Des Moines, Iowa, and I yell at him every time. Like, why did you bring me to Connecticut?
Wrong move. If you're a whitetail hunter, that was probably polar opposite of the type of deer, from East Coast to the Midwest. You go from giant 300-pound Midwestern bucks to, actually, I don't know how big you grow deer out there, but
You know what?
body-wise, but
Body-wise, we definitely have big-bodied deer here. It's just mainly the Rex. The genetics are different for sure. And don't get me wrong, we have some like mule deer / moose deer brewing around here for sure, and we have the proof to show it. It's just they're few and far between versus Midwest, especially Iowa, Illinois. That's king deer states right there.
it is. I guess you could say that I'm spoiled as far as that goes, but you're always welcome out to Illinois to hunt, that's for sure.
Hell yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, we're just the dumb retards that live in Connecticut.
Like you said, Dana,
Well,
it's all in the blood. It's in the blood.
It is, and it's just as long as you don't shit your pants when you see that first 180.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll happen. You can bet on it.
You are not riding in my truck home.
I wouldn't shit my pants. It'd probably fall out of the tree. I'd get a different ride home.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good transition. Now that we're talking into that, is the hunting aspect. And you could ask us any questions you have, because I'm sure there's a lot of Midwest people out there curious about the East Coast. But let's start.
For sure.
Yeah, let's start with how many buck tags can you get out in Illinois?
So in Illinois, you're allowed 2 bucks per year, and then that includes your bow and gun season. So, you can shoot both of your bucks at the bow. You can shoot both of your bucks at the gun if you draw the tag. But and as far as does go, it's unlimited. As long as you have a tag, you can shoot does.
That's awesome. And is there a certain procedure you have to go about first before you get onto the buck tags? Like, do you have to shoot an antlerless first before going on to bucks or anything like that?
Nope, just go to the store and buy your tags. Go to your local Walmart and pick up. Ours come in a combo tag, so you'll get a buck and a doe with your archery tags. And then there's no procedure as far as shooting a doe first or antler restrictions or anything like that. It's whatever's brown's down if that's what you want.
Hell yeah. And I'm glad you bring that up because, I mean, out here in the East Coast, we tend to lean more towards that way for the obvious reason, making sure our freezer's full. And of course, we like to manage our deer as well. But,
yep.
I mean, the population, especially in a confined little state like Connecticut, it's actually more useful to the brown is down. And didn't you start off hunting that way when you were younger?
Yeah. Yep. When I was young, I mean, that's right now. My kids are the same way. I don't have any restrictions for them, even though we manage the properties that we hunt on. I feel like it's a disservice to the kids if they're passing every deer that walks by because it's a 4-point or a buttonhead or a doe or, it's what makes them passionate is to be able to shoot a deer. Then I'm all for them taking whatever they want.
Dana,
same way my parents raised me.
That's awesome to hear because you don't hear that quite often in the Midwest especially, but that's the way I was raised and all of us were raised, and that's the same way even on properties where I pass up deer. It's if someone's there as a first-time bow hunter or a kid, you shoot what makes you happy.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's so cool to hear.
Even if you're 50 years old,
yep.
If shooting a buttonhead makes you happy because he tastes good, stick an arrow in him. I don't get it.
Yeah, the inventor of the stepladder, Jim Stepp, he hunts with me every year. He comes down, and it was last week of the January season, and he shot a button buck, but that made him happy. So I'm all about it.
You got to go home with meat. That's to us. I think that's the ultimate goal, anyways.
And that's the way that's the way that children, in my mind, and obviously yours, should be raised. You can't learn how to kill deer if you're passing up deer. You got to kill deer to learn how to kill deer.
I tell you what, the more I still get the stanky leg every time a big buck walks by, but it sure does help. It sure does help to have a few deer under your belt before you let a couple arrows fly or start flinging legs. So,
have your kids killed deer yet?
Yes, my two oldest kids. I've got my oldest son. His name's Cameron. He's 15, and he's killed 13 or 14 already.
That's awesome.
And then my middle daughter, Taylor, she just turned 13 this past weekend, and she's killed. I believe this year was her second deer.
That's awesome.
And then my youngest
really cool.
still isn't old to go, but that's what I love to do. I love passing it down to them.
And how excited do you get when they kill a deer? Probably more excited than when you kill a big buck, right?
Yeah, it's I can't explain it. The feelings that rush over you after, a full year of preparation and watching your kid grow through, life in the outdoors. It's just you can't make that stuff up. You can't, and you can't. You can't do anything to that even compares, if you ask me, because
that's awesome.
My life is the outdoors, and also my kids, and you can't ask for more.
Dana, when your kids were growing up around hunting, how did you introduce them to the woods? Did they naturally just fall into it? And
yes, they wanting to tag along with me. Through scouting trips or going to hang stands, and
so you just involve them in everything, and they just naturally.
Exactly, everything that I did, they came along with, and now they ask to come. I wasn't dragging them out, but they ask, "Hey, Dad, can we go to the woods? Hey, can we go do this? Can we hunt tomorrow?"
That's cool.
They look at trail cam pictures and they're like, "Man, Dad, I'd really like to shoot that buck."
That's
all right. We can go. let's go try to kill him.
Yeah, that's parenting done right
Yeah,
there, man. That is
that's
so cool to hear. I got a 1.5-year-old son. D-Rock's got, yours is 7, right?
Yep.
And then your
7-year-old
daughter-
boy, 12-year-old daughter.
Yep, so he's right there, but I got a long way to go, but I love hearing stuff like that.
And an easy way to get them involved outdoors without bringing them into the woods if they're kind of hesitant. For example, my daughter, she definitely does not want to kill anything, but she will definitely help me break down and quarter out deer and cut it down. But the way that I'm trying to ease her into it, to touch back on a past episode, Jessica Taylor Byers, she gave really good advice. Fathers, don't push your daughters. You really have to be gentle with it and ease that into it. And the way I do it might not be the right way, but it works for me, is I have her shoot. When I'm shooting in the backyard, she's shooting with me. And that's a real easy way to kind of, this way you get her exposed to the outdoors and you can expose her the right way.
Did you see a difference between your son and your daughter?
None. The only difference is competition on buck size.
That's great.
My daughter is extremely competitive, which is why she takes catching lessons. But, she will not be outdone, that's for sure, especially when it comes to shed hunting. She'll keep walking until she finds a bigger antler or more antlers than I do. So,
shopping.
So instead of using dogs, you just have your kids.
Yeah, it is.
That's perfect.
She's got an eagle eye, too.
That's really cool.
I love it.
So touching back on the hunting in general, which is awesome that you get your kids involved, and it's pretty impressive that one of your kids already has like 13, 14 deer down.
15 years old.
Right. That is awesome. Yeah, that's savage status.
You better watch out because you're in trouble.
He doesn't miss very often. I mean, if something's in his sights, it's probably going to die.
That's awesome.
But that's years of practice. Start them young, like you said. Get them in the backyard, get them shooting, take them out to the range with you, so they're not afraid of guns and they're not afraid to let that bullet or arrow fly. It's like we said, it's all in how you raise them.
Did you start them on a small game before deer?
We did some squirrel hunting, but we basically jumped straight into deer.
That's cool.
See, I wish I had someone to push me that way. It took me a while. Dana, we talked yesterday, and this is only my second year deer hunting, it's definitely a quote-unquote Kurt Geyer, a rabbit hole, if you will, and it's definitely the rabbit hole that you want to get into and never climb out.
It is.
It's just bottomless. It really is. And there's so much to it. It's just freaking amazing,
There's so much to learn. I mean, I'm 39. I've been hunting since I've been 11, and I'm still learning every time I walk out into the woods. I mean, it's endless.
It's a crazy thing. I mean, I myself have been hunting since I was 12 years old. Actually, probably before that, but hunting since I was 12. And I'm still learning things, and sometimes I question myself, and I'm like, well, what have I been doing all this time wrong? And you're like, oh, shit, I just learned this, and how did that even make sense? How did I do this my whole entire life and not know this? You know what I'm saying? It's so cool to learn it.
It is, and it's just so much. Sometimes taking it all in could be overwhelming.
And sometimes it's stepping back and thinking simple and say, what am I?
Exactly.
I'm overthinking. I need to step back and look at the bigger picture.
So I want to get back into your 2018 deer season. You ended up bucking out, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I took one with my bow and one with my gun. The first buck that I shot was an 8-point, and it was actually my first sit of the year. And we talked a little bit yesterday on, I had went a couple years without shooting a mature buck in my eyes because I was being picky and being a little over picky, trying to shoot one deer, and it kind of took me away from my roots and getting getting overwhelmed by, age level and rack size, that it was fun to shoot the first deer that walked by my stand. So, it was refreshing. But then, opening day of first shotgun season, I ended up taking a pretty good buck. It scored 151, and I'd sat all day and only seen 2 deer, and then right at last light, it finally happened. So,
but in between those,
just like that.
In between those 2 deer, your son shot like what, 10? So you had a lot of work ahead of you.
He didn't shoot his first deer this year until muzzleloader season, so it was in December. But again, my son, he's getting to the age where he wants to start shooting those older age class deer. So, he's learning, the same way I did. You can't shoot monster bucks if you keep shooting the little ones.
Yep.
So.
That's right.
Well, you have that many under your belt. I think you could start thinking that way. So,
Now, Dana, with this being East Coast bow hunting podcast, what is your archery setup? What bow you shooting? What arrows you shooting? What's your setup you're working with?
Right now, I'm shooting the Hoyt Carbon Defiant 34. It's got the turbo cam on it, and I'm shooting the HHA Optimizer Light single pen, and then during the season I was using the Maxima Red SDs, but I recently got a hold of a big Haas and got set up on some new arrows. And
there you go.
Now you went the right route.
Slinging hammers.
Yeah, now,
and I'm in that same boat, Dana. I got
arrow now.
Absolutely. I got hooked up with Haas through this, and I'm in that same boat. I got the Ethics archery components, the outserts, the inserts, and I'm rocking with some serious archery shafts now. So I'm looking forward to this year putting those through some deer.
What shafts are you using?
It's the Sirius Orion, as they're called.
Okay.
Yep.
I ended up going with the Black Eagle Rampage 250s.
Nice.
Because I was wanting to shoot 175 grain head this year, so I want a bone crusher.
Hell yeah!
Oh, so that being said, you want a bone crusher? Have you peeped out the Zeus broadheads yet?
I have not. I've seen them, but I haven't done any research on them yet.
We know a guy. We know a guy. So if you want some intel or want to try them out, just let us know. We'll ship a few out to you.
Are you going to be at the Iowa Deer Classic?
Unfortunately, I'm not. Shedcation starts this week, and I'll be in the woods. You guys will be fondling 100-inch antlers there. You won't miss me.
Oh, man. So before we get into that shed hunting, because that's what this episode is about, and we have, like I said, we're catering to you, so there's no time limit tonight. It's as many Jack and Cokes that you got in your hand, really. I want to hear the Eastwood story.
Eastwood. So the last couple of years, we've had a pretty good buck on camera, and he kind of disappeared. Well, and we called him the Split 3 buck, and he was just a awesome, heavy mass 10-pointer with split G3s on both sides. But he was fairly young, and anyways, I crawl into my stand, and it was kind of a misty, rainy morning. I'm kind of sitting over a 10-year pasture. It's I don't know if you guys know what 10-year pasture is, but basically it's
you want to explain it a little bit, Dana?
It's a piece of ground that's been set aside, and they let it sit for 10 years before they replant it again. Kind of let
the nutrients and stuff come back in.
Nutrients and everything come back, yeah. So I'm kind of overlooking this pasture, and it's right at first light, and I hear a grunt right as it's just starting to get light. So I pull up my binos. I'm looking out in the field, and I see a doe out there, and then I hear another grunt, but it's off further up into the pasture, and it's just, I can't really see a whole lot yet, and I'm sitting there watching out. My eyes are focused on the field, trying to figure out what deer this is, or who it is, or what it is, and I got bucks coming in all around me. I mean, I passed up a good 130-inch 8-point. I got busted by a little 6-point while I was trying to dig out my grunt call, but he didn't blow or anything. He just kind of worked his way up the hill, and then, finally got light enough to where I could see, and we got this giant, heavy rack, 160, 170-inch deer. He was a 6x6, mainframe 6 on one side, and then mainframe 5 on the right side, but he had a double main beam. And he, I tell you what, this deer, I couldn't tell if he was just tired from screwing all night or if he was just fat or what, but his eyes were all squinty and puffy, and it looked like he was high on, whatever's out there. Yeah, catnip or whatever, bucknip. Anyways, he's out in the middle of this field, and he's got these squinty, puffy eyes, and he's running off all the other bucks that are out there. If I remember right, there was 5 different bucks trying to come out and breed with his doe, and he ended up running them all off, and they bedded out in the middle of the field. And I'm sitting there for like 4 hours getting rained on. Finally, I'm like, man, I got to try to make something happen. Do I either get down and try to work around and put a shot on him? Do I grunt at him? Do I snort wheeze? What do I do? Because he's bedded out there.
How far away you think?
He was probably about 90 yards from me. And if I would have got down, I was afraid to get down because the hillside that I was hunting on. I'm in a hedge tree, a hedge apple tree, and it's the only tree on the hillside that's big enough to hold a stand. And the rest of them are all like small cedars and grass and stuff like that. So I was afraid that I was going to get pegged if I got down out of the stand. So I decided to try to snort wheeze at him, and it worked. The buck got up out of his bed. The doe got up. He started thrashing a tree and grunting, and he's snort wheezing out there too, and he kind of starts working off towards the doe. So I grunt, snort, wheeze again, and he came in on a string, straight down to me and straight behind a tree. No shot at all. He came all the way into me at 40 yards, and I could not get a shot at him. And I grunted at him again as he was turning to walk away, and he ran up the hill right back to the doe and screwed her like 5 times up on top of the hill. I mean, he's like, you are not getting this doe. She's going to be wore out by the time I'm done.
So you were there for quite a bit while they're kicking boots, huh?
Yeah, I ended up sitting for about 6 hours that day. And, it was during my vacation, so I usually plan on sitting all day anyways. And if I'm not seeing much in the mornings, I'll kind of move off to another stand or go hit another property, just depending on movement. So, but yeah, it was quite the spectacle. He was a monster deer.
That's crazy. So just to put
anyways, I was talking about the split G3 buck, and come to find out that was the same buck. He had just lost his split 3s.
No kidding.
Super wide, heavy. I mean, he's probably had 18 inches of mass on both sides. I mean, he's just heavy deer.
That's crazy. That is crazy. And just to put things into perspective, what was your first bow kill? What did that deer measure out to?
Two
Just so people
4/8.
say that again. I'm sorry.
204 and 48.
Wow.
That is crazy.
With over 20 inches of mass per side.
Wow.
That's insane. So basically a baby elk.
Basically, I mean, he's got 5+ mass measurement, 5+ inch mass measurements all the way through his beam.
Wow.
Have you killed any other 200 inchers?
I have not. I've killed a 191 and a handful of 150s, 140s.
Jesus.
Wow.
Those are still giants.
191's pretty much a 200.
You can round that one up.
Oh, man. That's crazy. So, yeah, I mean, just to put things into perspective, because Midwest is just, like I said, it's king deer states, and it's stuff that we dream about sometimes, but at the same time, I'm sure you have a ton of curiosity for East Coast slaying, especially with the shed hunting and stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm always up for a challenge. You
Hell
know,
yeah.
it's learning new things, keeping you on your game, trying to, take things and implement them in different areas, see what works, what doesn't work, and it's all a big chess match, and you always want to come out on top. So
Do you take your shed hunting and turn it into what you learned shed hunting into your season? Like, I hear a lot about guys saying where they found sheds is where they're focusing on hunting, but to me it always seems like where I'm finding sheds, it's you're talking late season, after season deer, they're dropping their antlers, opposed to how do you incorporate that into September, October?
That's actually a good question. I'm glad you asked that, because this is a perfect time to transition into shed hunting, quote unquote, from Dana Pace. It's an extension of your scouting, the shed hunting. Word, Dana?
Yes, it is. So obviously, the stuff that you want to take into your deer season is all the rut sign that you're finding. So if you're finding rubs, scrapes, you're finding your bedding areas, your transition areas, stuff like that. But that's the stuff you want to take into your bow season, because it's all old sign. But the deer, when you're finding sheds, you don't really want to hunt that sign, because that's their winter pattern.
Right.
And it might change year to year depending on food sources. So you can't, there's a chance that you could kill off, an area where you found a shed, but chances are that's just their winter feeding area or winter bedding area, and it's like you said, it's all late sign, and you really don't want to implement that into your bow hunt.
I'm glad you said that, because there's so many misconceptions of people that find antlers and they think, I got him, I found his bed, but realistically, you can't kill a deer in October where you found a shed in January, February.
Exactly. I mean, there's deer that I find sheds too that I don't have any pictures of.
Right.
It's because they're not wintering, or they are wintering on your property, but their summer feeding patterns and their rut patterns are a mile away, on a different property, and it's hard to hunt that way if that's the way you choose to hunt.
Yeah, there's different scouting. There's scouting early season, scouting mid-season, but like you pressed on a good point where you said seeing the rut activity and the signs, the rubs, the scrapes, and everything, and then taking that and knowing when to hit it that season, the coming season. So if you find rubs and scrapes during the season, well, you were probably too late. Where if you find them after the season, kind of the time frame when to hit it during the coming season.
Yep, exactly. And it's, it helps out a ton. I mean, the first thing to shed hunting is finding the deer. If you're not on the deer, you're not going to find antlers, and it's all in how you read the sign. You got to be able to tell the difference between, old sign and fresh sign, and sometimes you got to get out, after a fresh rain or after a fresh snow and see where all the tracks are and where they're bedding at, just to give you an idea where you need to be during shed season.
And that's where trail cams are real crucial, right? Would you agree?
They are. I run a lot of trail cameras, and the spots that are still showing me with all my good bucks carrying one or both sides. Those are spots you kind of want to stay out of, so you give them the chance to fall, and you don't push them onto somebody else's property.
Yeah, that's a good point right there.
Solid advice.
I got a question. So, obviously, your shed hunting is way different than ours, and you guys actually have a physical season, correct? That you can start shed hunting, or
no, we can start shedding hunting in November if we want to.
Okay. But you have to get permission on some properties, though, to shed hunt? You can't just go anywhere and shed hunt, or... Yeah, we have to get permission on all of our properties, and sometimes it's hard because a lot of the properties are small parcels, so, there's just really not much you can do about that if they're bedding on somebody else's property. Right. Yeah, no, and that's a little bit. I mean, the same here. If you don't have permission there on the private land, then you can't go there. But there's a lot of conservation areas, federal forests, stuff like that we go and we shed hunt, but we can't hunt. We can't actually physically hunt there. But at that point, we're actually just hikers looking for sheds.
Yeah,
because there's not.
Yeah,
it's
we
not
don't have. Go ahead.
Oh, it's not like big shed hunting area out here. We don't have 75 people going out shed hunting. It's not like a huge sport unless, you know what I'm saying? Not a lot of people shed hunt.
Yeah. The Midwest, I think any landowner shed hunts.
Really?
It's hard to find people that own land that don't go out and look for antlers, which makes it hard to get permission a lot of the time.
Even landowners that don't hunt, they're out shed hunting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Or they have family that shed hunt, and you just got to get lucky sometimes, and you got to knock on a lot of doors.
Yeah, here most of the time, if you ask someone, "Hey, can I get on your property to shed hunt?" they'll be like, "Do what?" Find your antlers. What do you mean?
You said that. Yeah, you say that, and they're thinking sheds that you store your lawnmower in.
We ran into that a lot in South Dakota. You want to do what?
Oh, no kidding.
No, we want to. It's strictly medicinal.
Straight up. So, what good advice do you have for the new shed hunter? Because a lot of people say south-facing slopes, and this is something that I want you to elaborate with, because we got into actually some deep conversation about that you have a lot of good tips with that.
Yeah, south-facing slopes are, you want to hit south-facing slopes, but a lot of times, a deer will bed on south-facing slopes, but if they don't have the right cover from wind or from predators, they're not gonna bed where they're not comfortable. So, and that's when you got to start changing your technique up. Only hitting stuff that runs east and west. If you got a predominant northwest wind, or you got to. There's a lot involved when it comes to a deer's winter habits. They're just trying to survive, and if the land and the terrain isn't giving them what they need, they're going to move on. We touched a little bit yesterday on. I've got a lot of open face south-facing slopes. So what I mean by open face is the end of the draw or the end of the finger is, open face, like it opens up into a cornfield or opens up into, CRP grass. And we've had a lot of snow this year and a lot of blowing blizzard snow. And where I typically find sheds, there's, 3 foot of snow right now. So I had to change things up and start hitting stuff that run east and west, but still gets plenty of sunlight. And, just there on those transition areas between the grass and the heavy bedding, that's where I started picking up my antlers. And each year it's going to be different. It's going to be different, as far as ag, your food, your cover. Somebody can come in and bulldoze all your cover, and you're back to square one. So, as far as beginners go, the first thing that I'm going to tell you to do is walk. You're not going to learn anything if you're not just out there hitting everything. If you got 40 acres, it could take you 3 or 4 hours to hit it really, really good. Start grid searching. Keep the sun at your back. If you're shed hunting when it's sunny out, you can't walk in. The shadows play a huge factor in how you're finding sheds. So you keep that sun at your back and grid search areas that you feel like there's tons of deer sign, and you're going to eventually walk up on an antler.
And that being said, though, you're saying get boots on the ground, but you also want to pay attention to where you're walking, right? Because you expressed to me that you were walking in the wrong spots, to be blunt.
Yeah, and like I was touching on, that I was walking in the wrong spots because I was used to finding sheds in these areas, but the snow and the weather had changed this year, and part of shed hunting is you have to adapt. And if you've got to, if the deer are doing something, you've got to adapt to what the deer are doing, not to what you're doing and what you're used to doing. And I found that out, in a lot of areas that the deer they would rather not bed on the snow. They would rather find, a spot that's been melted in the warm sun, secluded, it's got good cover, and out of the wind. And I started changing my approach that way and started picking up, I think I picked up 12 antlers this weekend.
Wow.
And,
How many do you have for the year, by the way?
I picked up 20.
And that's slow for you, right?
It's slow because everything's buried right now, and once that starts melting off, it'll be, hopefully they're not all chewed up by the tree rats.
Fucking squirrels, man.
Wow.
Fucking Satan's disciples and motherfuckers.
And Dana, you said your shedcation hasn't even started yet, right?
No, it's not. I usually like to wait till at least sometime in March so that 80% of the deer have dropped by then. So, I don't want to waste my time walking spots over and over and over again when I can just, go in late and try not to, basically push the deer off of your property until you're ready to walk it. So
That's a really good tip, though, because I find that, like, early in the season, I find myself wanting to find all these sheds, so I'm in the woods, putting the miles out, and then I just completely burn myself out by the time the middle of March comes, and I'm like, this fucking sucks.
It does suck, but the more miles you put on the ground and the more you learn what your deer do from year to year, you'll start finding sheds earlier and earlier, and it'll help feed that addiction. That's what it does for me anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's funny that you say that because, like, some of the properties that I go into, I know where the deer already are because I've learned it from past years of hiking in there. I may not have found a shed, but I know where those deer are and where to head to anyways and put myself in the right area and then finally come up on sheds.
Yep.
It's just putting feet on the ground.
It is. It's yeah, there's years that I've walked 400 or 500 miles, but I pick up 60, 70, 80 sheds. So, the more you walk, the better you're gonna get.
We're all shaking our heads over here, saying if we walk 1,000 miles, we might pick up 10 if we're lucky.
You know what? It's funny you bring this up actually because Trev and I were actually discussing this the other day. I think it was yesterday actually that. we sometimes make the mistake of going for shed hunting, right? And we'll be shed hunting places that we know we'll find the sheds, but they're not necessarily the places we're allowed to hunt because we're looking for the sheds. But in all reality, like touching on earlier in the episode, it's an extension of your scouting. So in all reality, a good tip is to shed hunt where you're going to be hunting, more or less. This way you can get a good grasp on how to approach the next year following. Yeah, exactly. A lot of like my leases that I hunt on and stuff like that. I use my antlers for different things. So, the more antlers that I can find, the better. And I've got some properties that I'm only allowed to shed hunt on. And, I give the landowners first dibs on the antlers if it's a buck that they're wanting the sheds to or anything like that. But the rest of them I carve up. So, the more that I can get, the merrier. But on my leases, that's a different story. On properties that I actually hunt, I like to spend more time in there because it's deer that I'm trying to build history with and, trying to make a story. Yep. Trying to put a story together. Yep. And, I approach those properties just a little bit different, and I hit them a little bit harder, but I don't hit them harder until late because, even if it's chewed up, I'd still rather find that antler than not. So. Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think all of us here are hooked. I know, especially me. I want some kind of morel landscape antler carved out, Dana. I don't care how much it costs, man. You
on
do something
on a
like
log or a moose paddle.
Anything, any shed, really. I mean, I'm just really amazed on your artwork, man. It's just
Thank you.
Yeah, you don't find that anywhere else.
I mean, I think looking at that would be better than actually finding an actual morel. Because it's almost fucking non-existent here.
That's why
I put them out. I've had some people pick them up and get a little pissed off, and then I lose my mushrooms. So
you can put them out up here. Come up here. You can shed hunt with us, and you can put those out. I'd rather find those.
So real quick for the newer shed hunter or someone that's more experienced but not necessarily finding the right spots, I want to touch on deer beds in the south facing slopes. Like, are you looking for grassy areas like switchgrass or even some goldenrods? I mean, what exactly are you looking for out Midwest? So this way we can kind of reciprocate and let you know what to look for out in the East Coast.
To me, there's two different types of bedding. There's your day bedding, where they're looking for heavy cover and trying to keep out of the way, keep away from humans or whatever predators they have. But there's also nighttime bedding, and I prefer to shed hunt nighttime bedding over daytime bedding. So your nighttime bedding would be grassy areas along field edges or grassy waterways that lead into ag fields or food plots. A deer will get up and feed for a couple hours, and then they'll bed down. They'll bed down out of the wind, and they'll bed down somewhere soft, which is most of the time in the Midwest, it's your waterways. I'll find probably 30% of my sheds in waterways because, they'll get up and lay down all through the night, and they try to stay, that's the best cover and bedding for them through the night. And daytime bedding is a little bit harder to shed hunt because it's usually in your interior edges in the Midwest, and it's thick, nasty, multifloral rows, and it's full of squirrels, with damn tree rats, and
it's fucking squirrels, man.
9 times out of 10, you find a shed laying in a daytime bedding area, it's going to be chewed up. I mean, it can be chewed up within hours. I find sheds that still have blood on the pedicle, and all the tines have been mowed off.
Jesus. It's funny how they target the tines, though. You know what I mean? Out of all places.
It all depends on how they lay. If they're laying beam up, then they'll target the beams. But most of the time, I hardly find any tines down. I do, but it's not as much as I do tines up. And
Dana, do you think that coyotes pick up antlers quite often and run off with them? Chew on them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's spots that I know, or I don't know if you call them sun areas for the coyotes. They drag like plastic bottles and, oil filters or whatever they want to chew on into these spots. And you'll find antlers laying there or smaller dead bucks and stuff like that. But, yeah, I do believe they pick them up and move them.
Yeah, just like a shed dog. They're a dog.
Yeah, a dog or a regular dog. There's got to be something to be said on those antlers, though. There's got to be something in the compound of an antler.
It's calcium.
Well, yeah, but it's got to be something else more to it. Because, I mean, not just calcium itself, but it's got to be something that draws, especially like a squirrel, for example. Why the hell do those tree rats always want the antlers? There's something else besides calcium, because if that was the case, they'd be all over jawbones and stuff, and you don't necessarily see jawbones chewed up like you do antlers.
No, I've never seen that, but
that's what I mean. So I wonder what's in the composition of an antler.
Fast growth, pure calcium like deposit. It's got so much nutrients in it.
I bet you. Yeah, exactly what I'm getting at.
I'm no expert, but that's.
Me neither, but I mean, just common knowledge of being in the woods. There's got to be something in the composition of an antler that draws the tree rats, especially most of all, to just chew them up like crazy. I don't know. It's pretty interesting.
And they do. It is. It's very interesting.
It's like a beaver.
Yep, just like the beaver.
They just chew a tree. You wonder how long it took them.
Oh, we were talking about different beavers, Drew.
Oh.
They just eat that wood, Drew. Boneyard.
They don't call them boneyard for nothing.
I don't think about that anymore.
Bonehead.
I just saw some sadness in that last statement. Oh, man, that's crazy. So, Dana, I'm going to ask you this, man. Do you have any questions for East Coast boys as far as shed hunting or even hunting in general?
Yeah, so I'm curious, do you guys have, like big, vast ag fields like we do in the Midwest?
No, not at all.
Some cornfield, decent-sized cornfields, but that's about it, just corn.
Like here where I'm at, we don't even have a single cornfield left in our entire town. Like, we have one of the biggest land mass for towns, very rural town in Connecticut, South Central, and, I'm hunting basically along a river bottoms. I'm hunting frag. I'm hunting shitty-ass old hayfields that haven't been fertilized since
or mountaintops.
In 10 years. I mean, yeah, we're hunting mountain laurel, power lines, thick, nasty shit, backyards. I mean, yeah, we have a couple alfalfa fields that are I'm talking like the biggest fields is maybe like 10 acres
at most. Wow.
Yeah, like
10,
there is
10 to 20 acres.
No ag. If you don't have acorns, you have nothing.
Yep.
Yeah,
and like me, I'm
you guys have a little more farm.
Yeah, so
we
we have some ag fields, a lot of corn ag fields, some very little like grass, alfalfa fields, some of those, but not really any big ag fields other than the corn. But most of the shit that we hunt is all big mountains, laurels, cliffs,
hardwoods,
very, very big hardwoods,
and that's
oaks
where it's
and ashes and shit like that.
It's so hard to pattern deer while we're hunting because literally their main food source is browse.
Yep.
So they're eating fucking twigs and just shit, and that's all they're eating, and that has a big deal to do with their nutritional value and everything. But it's like, how do you pattern a deer that's eating fucking browse?
And Dana, I hunt inner city, so that all being said, I hunt inner city behind one of my biggest bucks I found behind a McDonald's, an old McDonald's. So just to
Old
give you,
McDonald Farm.
Yeah. Oh, McDonald had a farm.
yeah, Old McDonald had a farm, and I shot that buck.
And then he got chicken nuggets after.
I mean, like, for example, this year we have these gypsy moths that are just absolutely annihilating our oaks and our ashes. And with the oaks, I mean, they're killing. You know, we haven't had leaves on our trees in probably 2 years, 3 years now, and that killed off the fruit on them. So we have no fucking acorns.
Well,
so,
yeah,
I
it was
mean,
like midsummer. You look around, it looked like it was fucking wintertime.
Yeah.
All our oaks are dead, and then we have the wood-boring ash bee, so all our ashes are fucking dying. So it's like we haven't had a good acorn crop in years.
Probably 10 years.
And like Boneyard said, they're just browsing. They're eating barberries. They're eating just any green they can find. I mean, things that they're usually not eating. They're eating them.
Which probably aren't very nutrient filled, which is
right.
Hell no.
Why
that's
why the antler size difference is so major between the Midwest and the East Coast.
That's everything. It's like a bodybuilder doesn't eat fucking, ramen noodles and donuts every day. And that's basically what our deer are eating, where it's like, where it's basically it's what they're eating. So it has everything to do with it. I mean, here, if you kill a 130-inch deer, you're doing something right. Yeah. A mature deer is a 130-inch deer. A 3-year-old that's 120 is an awesome deer. I mean, a 150-inch deer here is like killing a 200 out there.
Yeah.
I don't think I can live that way.
No, it sucks. Don't ever come out here.
No, it's definitely crazy. Like this year alone, like we didn't have no acorns on the mountain. We hunt this place. It's a mountain. It's 400 and some odd acres. It's a private property piece, and the farmer across the way on the bottom of the mountain, he planted sugar beets after the corn crop. And I'll tell you what, you go down to that field, there'll be 50 deer on it, but they're coming from fucking miles every single day, and it's just crazy. Then they started living at the bottom of the mountain, and then they're not on the mountain because there's no acorns.
And
so
then
they're virtually unhuntable.
The other thing is if we have a mass crop acorns, and then we're hunting, hundreds of acres of pure big hardwoods. If you have acorns everywhere, and then you have warm temperatures, the deer don't move at all. They don't go anywhere. They may get up from one. Yeah. They'll go white oak to white oak. That'll be priority, and they'll go one oak tree, and they'll walk 20 yards, another oak tree, and white oak, and bed down, and they don't move. They don't go anywhere.
And then you get on the city side of it, and they do the same exact thing. They sit in between house to house, and they don't ever move, and then they're nocturnal. So then they don't even get up unless somebody kicks them out of their fucking front lawn. So, I mean, there's definitely a vast different, areas that we hunt on the East Coast. It's definitely
a little bit of everything for sure.
Yeah. But then again, we also have, like, along the southern end of it, in areas around here, we can bait. So that adds a whole nother component to it. But then again, you talk to a lot of guys that go, you can bait? That's easy. That's a gimme. But no.
It's not easy.
You dump a bag of corn, you hunt it once, they got you figured out. So there's a way to bait, and there's a way to the guy that just dumps a bag of corn gets lucky.
Shabing.
Oh, man.
Oh, Dana, you know what that is?
Uh-oh. No, I don't.
That's the ninja.
Oh, I do.
What is it? What is it?
It's just the tip of the week. I mean, ninja tip of the week.
Tip. The veiny tip.
So, Dana Pace, Illinois Shedhunter. What's the ninja tip of the day?
The ninja tip of the day is walk with the sun at your back.
I heard that, and I was like, damn, that is a good point.
Aim in.
Elaborate a little bit more. Like, if you're, like, working a property, it's kind of hard to do that.
If you're working a property, you want to try to manipulate your person, yourself, to where you're walking with the sun directly behind you, so that you're not looking into shadows. If you're looking into shadows, nothing looks like an antler, and everything looks like an antler. So it's hard to decipher between the two. When I'm looking for antlers, I'm looking for characteristics. So I'm looking for white tines, or I'm looking for a curved beam, or something that's out of place, or you're walking through grass and the grass is moving and you see something not moving, you're picking up on stuff like that. And if you don't have the sun at your back, you're going to miss them 9 times out of 10. I can guarantee you that I've probably walked by more sheds that I've found.
That is so cool because a lot of guys think about shed hunting as just aimlessly walking around the woods, but you elaborate a lot of awesome points of how it's just like when you're hunting and you're looking for deer. If you're still hunting, you don't just look for a deer. You're looking for small things. You're looking for the ear. You look for an antler. You look for their back that's parallel to the ground. Little things, and every point you said, especially the sun point. That's something I never even thought about, and that's awesome.
This whole episode is full of ninja tips, so I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it.
It's just a ninja tip episode.
And your son and your daughter are going to be the biggest ninjas of this in the whole world.
Oh, and you know what? On that aspect, I want to shout out Jake Harton here, Moose Man in Connecticut, that you're friends with. Yeah, Dana?
Yes, I'm friends with him on Facebook, but that guy can find some sheds too.
Yeah, man. And you know what? We're here in the East Coast Bow Hunting Podcast. We're going to get him into bow hunting, and I'm telling you, man, he's probably approaching bow hunting the best way possible. So if you're a new bow hunter or trying to get into it, become a shed hunter first. Yeah. This episode is for you.
Definitely.
Without a doubt. So I want to touch on something that you brought up that was pretty amazing, man. Can you tell us about the antler scramble?
So the Antler Scramble is it's basically a giant Easter egg contest for kids that they're just looking for sheds. I think it's been going on for 5 years now. I think this is the fifth year, but it's an awesome way to get the youngsters out in the woods and, train their eyes to picking up antlers. So what we do is, they take hundreds of antlers out into CRP fields and timber and basically let the kids loose to go run and find antlers.
That's awesome.
And it is.
I want to come. For an East Coast boy, that'd be just like a kid.
Yeah, if we act like kids, will they allow us to contribute or participate?
Could you imagine?
That's how I taught my kids. If there wasn't any antlers on the ground, I would actually put antlers out for them to find, just so they learn.
That's awesome.
Go look for them because it's honestly not that easy when you're first starting out. It's hard to find an antler until you find your first one. It's just like mushroom hunting. For me, it's hard to find mushrooms until you find that first mushroom, and then you're like, oh, shit, they're everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know how many people say to me, they'll be like, oh, that's chicken of the woods or that's hen of the woods. Like, yeah, dude, you've been walking past it for years, and you just didn't fucking know it.
I've found them and picked them, but I'm always too scared.
Oh, man, don't be scared. Put it in your mouth. Put it in your mouth, Mojo.
Don't be scared. It's only mushrooms.
Yeah, that's all.
So that must be very rewarding to bring the youth and get them involved. And the Antler Scramble, that's put on by West Central QDMA, right?
Yes, it is. And it's ran by a great group of people, and that every year they do separate events for the kids. They have a youth season kickoff too, and it'll bring the kids together. For the youth deer, it'd be the youth gun season. The night before, they have food. They have prizes for the kids, grunt calls and stuff like that, and it's really an awesome association. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Made it to the last segment.
And those are little East Coast tiny sheds.
Yeah.
They total maybe like 90 inches.
Maybe.
They sound like the ones I carve.
Yeah, exactly. Man, that's a trophy. Bro. Come on.
Hey, Dana, I invited you onto the show. Come on, man. So, Dana Pace, what rattles your antlers, man?
I'm gonna bring something up along the lines of shed hunting. What rattles me is people that stage shed photos.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God. It's, they buy a farm shed or they'll buy a giant shed off eBay and they'll be like, oh, look what I found today. It's the biggest shed I ever found, just to look good on Facebook. And then 7 or 8 comments down, you'll see me comments like, hey, I just sold that on eBay. Like,
busted.
What the fuck is the point?
That's like you kind of summed up a lot of the hunting industry, though, right there.
It is. It's. I don't get it. I don't know what you're thinking you're going to gain out of lying about a shed that you found. My favorite is, guys that'll throw an antler out in the snow, and you can literally see that it's snowing all around. And it's fresh snow dropping on the antler, but this antler is still crystal clean, and foot tracks all the way up to where they threw it on the ground outside the truck stop or wherever.
Yeah, but Dana, that has a lot to do with common sense. You have common sense, so you picked up on that picture. 90% of the people didn't.
But I'll call them out because I hate bitches like that.
Hell yeah!
Oh,
amen.
Man. That's awesome. Funny. That is funny, man.
That's what it needs to be.
Yeah.
You got to call people out on their fucking bluffs because most won't.
Yeah, don't. I bust my ass off to find the antlers that I do. I have found well over 1,000 antlers, and I've never found a shed that has gone above 80 inches. And that's my number one goal every year is to find an 80-inch shed. And you'll come across guys that have picked up their 7th or 8th one for the year. It's like, come on. I mean, that's an 80-inch shed. That's a 160-inch deer without spread. So you got that many 180s walking around? Give me a break.
I thought they were behind every tree in Illinois.
Actually, I'm glad you bring.
My tree.
Yeah. Boneyard, I'm glad you bring that up. Dana, if you can picture yourself on the East Coast shed hunting, can you kind of paint the picture of how that would look like for us?
Don't even try it.
Like,
You'd be seeing your ass on a train back to where you came from.
Like, this is stupid.
I don't know if I could even find antlers that size.
No, you can't. Oh, no, if we find like a 20 or 30-inch antler, we're like, holy fuck, this is a good day.
Well, all right. Let me rephrase that question. How do you envision yourself shed hunting in the East Coast?
He's not going to waste his time.
It would be, like I said, I'd be up for the challenge. I would find food. I would basically go back to the beginning and start over from, the way I started by hitting the food and hitting bedding areas, and then finding the deer. And once I find the deer, I know I'll find antlers.
That's awesome.
They might be hard to find. They might not be very big, but I'd find antlers.
So once you found food, so okay, you find the food. Then what do? How far do you go from the food? But once you find food, do you then look at bedding after you find food?
Yep, and I'll start. I haven't shed hunted where I've been in big, vast timbers. All my shed hunting knowledge is from, there's a 400-acre cornfield and fingers and ditches running out into the middle of it. So I would have to learn basically from scratch, but you're going to have to find the latest sign, the freshest sign, near the food, and then start working your way out from there. So, you're basically going to grid out 360 degrees from the food, and then you'll start picking up on the bedding areas, and you'll start picking up on the interior transition or the interior fringes. A deer loves working fringes, transition between timber and grass or
edges.
ag and
Yep.
any of those edges. You're going to find the sign, and you got to be able to distinguish between old and fresh sign, and then basically become the deer and start. Where would I go? Where would I bed to have the best cover from the weather? What kind of weather do you guys get out there? I mean, is it snow all the time? Is it
Everything.
It's New England, man.
Yeah, we get
It snows, and then it fucking pours rain, and then it freezes.
Then it's
and then we get
mud,
boiling heat.
Shit.
Yeah, we get everything, Dana. It's super unpredictable.
Bipolar.
Even in bipolar. Perfect
Yeah.
example.
That's the way we've been lately. These last couple winters, I mean, hell, we had tornadoes on Christmas, and then 2 weeks later, a week later, there's 9-10 inches of snow on the ground, blowing 50 mile an hour. It's been weird this year.
Yeah. So that's cool, man. I'm glad we touched on everything that we had questions for. Hopefully we touch base for the new shed hunter as well as the experienced shed hunter. And Dana, man, I mean, you dropped some knowledge, and we could go on all night for sure.
We could.
Yeah, man.
We
But
could.
we got to keep the families happy and keep that balance steady, so this way we don't get in the doghouse, especially after a night of podcasting.
I'm always in the doghouse.
So,
Exactly. Hey, you guys have me back anytime. I would love to talk antlers whenever.
Hell yeah. And Dana, I do mean it. Start working on that Morel project for me. I got you, bro.
I definitely will, buddy. I'll make it something. You got to have a centerpiece.
Yeah, there you go.
You got to
That's what
make
I'm
sure
talking
it's
about.
nice and veiny, though.
So on that note, I want to end in a round of positivity, and let's start. I'm going to go to my right, so we'll start with Boneyard. What do you got? Bring positive to end the show.
Man, Dana, it was just awesome talking to you. Like growing up, shed hunting to me was always just, walking in the woods, just to get out into the woods. But, I basically my whole time I was spent looking up, down, over. Right, I was just basically scouting for the season. Then I got my dog, and I trained him to find sheds. So then I kind of evolved into a little more, but. Regardless of all that, just listening to you, like the tactics that you use to shed hunt, like I've never heard anybody talk about tactics and strategies and, how basically you're hunting for sheds the same exact way you hunt for deer, but it's a different time of the season. Like that was so fucking cool. Everything the whole sun thing and bedding and like everything you were saying, I was like, Jesus Christ, that's awesome. So the shit I learned from you and the knowledge you have, it gave me a whole different perspective on shed hunting. So that's my positivity. And no, it was I'm blessed to be able to fucking talk to you, and it was an awesome, awesome time, buddy. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, man. Feelings mutual.
Awesome, Trev. What you got?
I'm gonna go with that. Also, I think it's great. I learned a ton, and it's definitely gonna change my game in the woods. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. I can't thank you enough. And I can't also thank my family for supporting me and my wife, who financially help us and get us through and letting us go to Iowa and all this, that, and the other thing, going to the shows and spending the time. I'm really thankful and positive about that.
And your kids are your kids are badasses. The way you raised them is fucking awesome. I hope to do the same thing.
Word, right, Ryan? What you got?
I want to start off by, again, saying thank you, Dana, like everyone else has. Thanks for being on the show. But I'm going to spin the dial a little bit, talk about turkey slaying is right around the corner. And I'll tell you what, my elite is ready to eat some fucking gobblers. Send some ethics products right through them with some Zeus broadheads leading the way. So I'm excited to get in the woods. Turkey season's right around the corner, and positive note for me.
Hell yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah, it is. Dana, what you got for us?
Well, first off, thanks for having me, guys, because that's what I live for, is to shed hunt and to talk about it and, pass on my knowledge. But I would guess the positive thing that I would say is, to me, these podcasts are awesome. They're the way to they're the newest way to pass on information, to the people that are wanting to learn, and East Coast bow hunting provides, a little inspiration for others to follow their dreams and, make it a reality through, your helpful information, from the podcast. So, you guys keep up the good work. You guys are doing awesome.
Thank you, man.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dan. That
Thank
means
you.
the world, dude. It really does.
It really does. Coming from someone out Midwest living in God's heaven is definitely something to be said. And what I bring positive to the podcast and what I take away is just the plethora of knowledge that we all learned tonight. And we get to share that knowledge to the East Coast up and down. So this way we can pick apart what you give us and we could apply it to our application here in the mountains, chasing mountain goats. And Dana Pace, Illinois shed hunter. Stay steppin'.
Stay slaying.